Are you close enough? Because it's gonna get really cold today. Have you ever thought about what it would be like to travel to the poles? To the most extreme places on the planet? Well, if that's something that you want to do, you've come to the right place. Let's talk about the Arctic and the Antarctica. Hello Internet, welcome to Lex Universe. My series about some interesting geographical feature is continuing, and in this video I want to discuss what you need to know if you want to travel to the poles. To the South Pole, to the North Pole, we don't have any other. Well, it's more complicated, I will get to it in the videos. But before we begin, let me welcome all new subscribers. I love you guys, I hope you will stay with me any longer. In case you haven't subscribed yet and you like my content, please do so. It will really make my day. But anyway, let's talk about the poles. Alrighty guys, well, what is a pole? Because you can see the word in many different contexts, and I want to discuss first what it is when we talk about the South and the North Pole. Along with that, I will end this video with an explanation how to get to both poles separately, but before I do, I will always give you some more information about the history of exploration of the pole regions, of the whole territory where they're located in general, and how the tourism works there, and some general geographical info in the beginning. So let's start with some basics. What we are talking about today are the geographical poles. It is the place where the axis of rotation of our planet intersects the surface of our planet. It doesn't really move that much. It's a static point on the surface. In both places there is some mark in the ground where you can see, well, and now I'm standing on the pole. It's a little bit more difficult in the North Pole, I will get to that. But anyway, it's one place. Then we have some other poles that we talk about. There is the magnetic and geomagnetic pole. The magnetic pole is basically the place where the needle in your compass is pointing all the time. Well, if you had a compass that would be in 3D, then when you're standing directly on the magnetic pole, it would point directly beneath your feet to the center of the earth. But that's not what we're talking about today. So if you are traveling to the pole and you will just follow this one needle, it will not bring you to the place that we talk about today. Then there is also the concept that is called the pole of inaccessibility. It's a place in the north where it's the furthest from any surrounding land, and in the south it's vice versa, the point in the Antarctic continent where it's furthest from any surrounding ocean. That may be one whole other level of extremity that you may want to visit, but that's also not what we are talking about today, because it's generally a lot more complicated to get there, and well, you would have to do it on your own, and it's quite difficult, especially in the north. One more concept that I want to explain is the polar circle. We have two. We have the Arctic Circle and the Antarctic Circle. Right now they are located at some 66 degrees of latitude, and these places are basically surrounding the area where you can see polar day or polar night, which means 24 hours a day light or darkness during the summer solstice or the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. And these two circles basically surround what we call the polar regions. And that's what we'll generally talk about today. Because when we talk about the poles, they are so far away and so remote from anything else that we will have to talk about the logistics getting into the Arctic and to Antarctica, because that's part of the problem that we'll have to solve if you want to visit these two places. Alright, so let's begin with the North Pole. It's located in the north. It's basically in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. That is one of the points. If you want to walk on the North Pole, well, it's kind of a problem because there is like a 4,000 meters of seawater beneath you before you can get to the surface. So you can basically float above the North Pole, or you can tell yourself the ice sheet that you can find in the pole, because it's really high in the altitude and it's super cold there, so there is ice, so you can walk on it. Then you can tell yourself, yeah, I'm on the North Pole. As you can see in this picture, there is actually a marker of the North Pole on the ice sheet that you find in the ocean there, but well, it moves, you know, it's ice, it's floating, so it moves on the ocean and it kind of changes its territory all the time. So it's a very cool place where you can take a picture, and it's really cool, but honestly, unless they change it all the time, that's really not the North Pole. You will need some device that will tell you the exact latitude, and once it hits 90, congrats, you're on the pole. But can you actually get there by feet? If you go there during winter, then possibly it will be very cold, but it's probably possible. It will be very dark also. The closest land is the island of Kaffeklubben in Greenland, which is cool. They probably really like coffee there. It's still some 700 kilometers, so if you would want to do the hike all the way, then 700 kilometers on ice. Good luck. The closest inhabited place is the town of Alert, or village of Alert in Nunavut in Canada, which must be one of the places I really want to visit. Keep dreaming, Max. Right, so how did we get to the North Pole? It's kind of a complicated story because unlike the South Pole, the North Pole, like I said, is in the ocean. So what does it even mean to get to the North Pole? Well, we can talk here about one of the most famous Norwegian people, Roald Amundsen, that took a plane with an engineer and another polar expeditionist, Italian Umberto Nobile, and then flew above the North Pole in the 20s. Which kind of mean that Roald Amundsen was actually the person who was at both poles, and he was actually the first person at both poles. That's kind of impressive, although he was a jerk from what I heard. But that's just flying. If we want to count only the people that actually set foot, or what we call the North Pole, so on the iceberg that's there, that would be the members of the expedition Sever 2 from the Soviet Union that in 1948 landed on this ice sheet in the Arctic Ocean, and they set foot on the place that we now currently consider the North Pole. So kudos to them. Now, if you want to go to the North Pole, what should you expect? Well, first of all, there are only 2 windows where you can get there. There is, you can go there in April, where it's possible to fly there. I will get to it later, why is that. And then in June or July, you can take a cruise on a ship. I will also talk about it a little bit later. So if you want to go to the pole, you should prepare for some extreme weather. But it's still a lot warmer than the South Pole. In summer, the average temperature is about 0 Celsius, but actually the warmest recorded temperature in the region was 13 degrees Celsius. So sometimes when it's really chilly outside, you can say, oh, it's colder here than that one day it was at the North Pole. It's kind of what's happening right now outside. Awful. I mean, I want to go to the polar regions, I want to go to the Everest, but you know, when I'm in Prague, I want summer. If you would go there during winter, which I wouldn't really recommend, because you will not see anything and you will freeze, well, the average temperature is around some minus 33 degrees Celsius, so not a very pleasant place. But wait for the South Pole. Like I said, the North Pole is covered by ice. That's cool, you can set foot there. There are some, let's say, 2 to 3 meters depth of ice, so that's kind of reassuring. You will not fall through the ice to the icy ocean. That's nice, I guess. But there are expectations that during the global climate change, it is possible that within a few decades, the whole Arctic Ocean will be basically completely ice-free, which will be very good for transportation, We're very sad for the polar bears and the penguins. I got you right. There are no penguins in the North Pole. Come on, guys. Anyway, let's get to the general idea how to get to the North Pole. Well, your easiest way how to go there is to fly. There are helicopter tours that depart from Svalbard, and these only work in very early April. This is around the time when the polar winter ends. There are windows of light during the days at the North Pole, and it's not that warm. I mean that warm for polar regions. So the helicopter can actually land on the ice and not break through the ice. So there are some 3 weeks during April where you can take a helicopter tour. It will take you directly to the North Pole. You can take a picture with your flag. Be happy. But this is not possible at a later time because the ice starts melting and it's not safe anymore. So there is a little window where it's not possible to go to the pole, but then we have June and July when it comes for the cruising time. If you want to take a boat cruise to the North Pole, it will take you some 14 days. All of these cruises start in Murmansk in Russia. They are usually operated by Russian agencies. You can buy all around internet from many international agencies, but you will eventually still end up on this one nuclear-powered icebreaker that will take you to the pole. From Murmansk, this takes some 5 to 6 days, and then you will get to the pole, the 7th day, let's say. You can take the picture, again, like I said, be very cool, brag about it to all the people, and, well, you're done with it. Then, on the way back, there is usually a stop in the Franz Josef Land, and you can, enjoy some Arctic tundra and the landscape. That's definitely something that you don't see every day. Let's talk about prices, because this is something I should probably said in the beginning. This is fucking expensive, like really. And the North Pole is actually quite good. The usual price for the cruise is about 31,000 US dollars. So, well, not exactly cheap, but wait for the South Pole. But this is for the standard room on the boat. If you want something a little bit more luxurious, it will be a lot more expensive. Not to mention that you also have to get to Russia or to Murmansk. There are not so many flights from around the world to Murmansk, so we'll probably transfer somewhere in Moscow or in Helsinki. Well, I'm saying this like it's a big problem, but anyway, when you compare it to the rest of the trip, these are some minor expenses. Another way how you can get to the North Pole, there are some other tours that you can get for both poles, but I will mention it only here for the North Pole. There is the Ski 1 Degree tour type. It means the boat or the helicopter will take you to 89 degrees of latitude, and then you will ski the last degree of latitude. Could be fun. I'm not a big fan of winter sports, so probably not really for me. Or you can basically take the whole trip, when the ice is still not melting, you can get on your skis and you can run all the way from the nearest land to the North Pole and back. It will take you several months, so I don't know, if you have nothing to do in life, you can try it. But that's another possibility how to get there. But that basically ends here, because that's the only options. Well, in theory, you can buy your ship and you can go there by yourself. The issue is, like I said, the one Russian ship that goes there is a nuclear-powered icebreaker, so unless you want to buy something like that, I don't think you have a chance. Not to mention, it's a lot cheaper to buy the ticket than the icebreaker. I mean, what will you do with the icebreaker once you get to the pole? Or you can start your own agency. I never thought of it. If any one of you does start it, please give me a shout out to bring you to this idea, and I hope I will get one free ticket from you. Well, things that get complicated once you get to the south. So let's travel to Antarctica. I will kind of divide this into two sections, because getting to Antarctica itself is a challenge, to say the least, in itself. Getting to the pole, that's a whole other issue. But let's start with the general info again. The South Pole is located at the minus 90 degrees latitude in the southern hemisphere. It's located in the central portion of the continent of Antarctica. It's a lot colder than its northern counterpart for a very good reason. I mean, there are two reasons. First of all, it's located in the middle of the continent, while the North Pole is in the ocean that basically kind of works as a reservoir for heat, so it's a lot warmer there. But also, if you come to the South Pole, it's located some 2,800 meters above the sea level, which is a lot, but that's kind of high. And if you know anything from the mountain, the higher you get, the chillier it gets. So I guess the same thing applies for Antarctica. One of the reasons why climbing Mount Vinson has to be this really difficult. Well, I'm getting off topic. Another thing that you have to consider if you want to come to the South Pole, it's located really far from any ocean, like some 1,300 kilometers from the nearest coastline. That's quite far away, especially if you want to go on foot, which I wouldn't really recommend. And also, if you want to go from a coast to the pole, you'll have to cross some places that are as high as 3,500 meters above the sea level. That are some crazy high mountains. You are getting almost to the top of the Alps. Now, before I get to the present time of the South Pole, let's talk about history. We all know the story of Amundsen and Scott, who kind of were in this competition who will reach the pole first. Well, eventually it was Roald Amundsen who arrived there in December 1911, and he was the first person to reach the South Pole. Scott arrived some months later. Unfortunately for him, it was in January, so it was another year. So now, when you look at the history of the conquest of the South Pole, you see Amundsen 1911, and then poor Scott 1912. At the moment, there is an American base near the South Pole called Amundsen Scott, which is dedicated to these two persons. And sometimes it used to be possible to pay for the visit in the base. Right now, it's not allowed because of COVID. But if you travel there anytime in the future, I guess you could pay for that. But I will get to the tours to the South Pole a little bit later. Now, apart from the base, what you will find at the South Pole is the actual South Pole, where there is a little monument with the dedication to both Scott and Amundsen, and it's not really interesting at all. And then there is a ceremonial South Pole, where we find this globe statue and surrounded with the flag poles of all the founding members of the Antarctic Treaty. So this is the place where you take the picture, you know. If you come to the South Pole, you take the selfie with the ceremonial pole, not with the actual pole, because it's not interesting enough. Antarctica is a problematic continent in itself. I mean, you have to go there in a very narrow window during the southern summer. You cannot get to Antarctica during winter. It's dark there all the time. It's very frozen, very icy. The ships cannot land during winter, and most of the planes cannot land in Antarctica during winter. So you will have to do it in summer. Now, what climate should you expect? Well, the worst possible climate you can imagine. The average temperature in summer at the South Pole is around minus 26 degrees Celsius. While in winter, the average temperature is around 66, but temperatures below minus 80 degrees Celsius are not that uncommon. So we talked about when to get to Antarctica. Now how? Well, this gets a little bit complicated. There are generally two possibilities how you can get to Antarctica, as by a ship or by a plane. You can swim on a polar bear with the propeller. That's basically a raft. I'm getting off topic, sorry. So if you want to take a cruise, there are several large cruise ships that are taking their passengers near to Antarctica. They cannot land. No ship that has a capacity of over 500 people can land on the continent, so you can just see Antarctica from the distance, and even the large ships are no longer allowed to the Arctic waters because of their fuel emissions. But you can go by a smaller boat. Many operators in the southern region of the planet do offer these cruises to the Antarctic regions. It must be really cool, but we want to go to Antarctica because we want to go to the pole, and it's not possible any other way. So what we have to do, we have to land there. There are actually two routes for boats to Antarctica. One from Ushuaia in Argentina, or from the South Island of New Zealand. The prices here start at some $6,000 from the Argentinian way, or some $22,000 for the New Zealand way. It takes some 2 days from Argentina and, well, a lot longer from New Zealand. So if you don't have that kind of time, you can actually fly there. There are several flight routes again. The most popular ones, now when I say the most popular ones, 95% of all the people who ever go to Antarctica go by ship from Argentina. And now let's divide the remaining 5% into several other ways how you can get there. And these are the most convenient ones, although unfortunately they're also the most expensive ones. If you want to fly to the Southern Shetland Islands, near to the Antarctic Peninsula, it will also cost you some $6,000, and it takes only 2 hours. And you have to depart from the Chilean city of Punta Arenas. If you want to go to the South Pole, it might be a lot better to fly to the so-called Union Glacier base camp. This is located a lot deeper within the territory of Antarctica, and it will be a lot easier to reach the South Pole. Yeah, and this costs some $25,000 for the flight tickets. Now, if you want to reach the South Pole, your best way, or the easiest way, is to fly. There are currently 2 indirect routes that will take you there, that fly only a few times per season, and that's the flight from Cape Town to Queen Maud Land, and then to the South Pole, because there is an airport at the South Pole. You will fly with this airplane that has ski instead of wheels, and must be really interesting. That's something I really want to do. Shit. Well, not important. Anyway, that's one of the way. That takes some 9.5 hours combined, you know, flying to the middle station and then to the South Pole. Or you can fly from Punta Arenas to the Union Glacier Camp, and from there you can fly directly to the South Pole. Many people stay in the Union Glacier Camp because there are some other places that you can see around, that you can visit. Maybe, you know, if you want to go to Antarctica, one thing is, I mean, it's a great achievement to get to the South Pole. It's actually not really interesting. Just in the middle of the plateau and there's nothing around you. So if you really want to spend your time somehow in Antarctica and to make the money worth, then I would really recommend to make some trips from the Union Glacier Camp and then continue on to the South Pole. This takes some 10 hours and it costs some $48,000. But that's not all that you have to do if you want to go to Antarctica. First of all, you have to get to Ushuaia or Punta Arenas. This is really at the tip of the American continent, so wherever you're flying from, this will be really far away. So consider that you will have to get there. Not to mention, flying in the Antarctic region is very unreliable and you can expect several delays for the plane, so maybe going by the boat is more reliable at that point, but you will still have to fly to the South Pole. Or do you? Well, that's another thing. Well, first of all, you can try to get at some scientific convoy. There are some caravan flying the so-called Antarctic Traverse, which takes you from the base of McMurdo at the coast of Antarctica all the way to Skottomundsen. It takes a long time, and I don't know if you know how big Antarctica actually is, but let me show you these pictures. This is Antarctica when you put it on the scale over the United States, and this over the Europe. And now let's move it all the way to the top. This is what Antarctica would be if it was on the North Pole instead of the South. But it's insane, it's really far away. So you will drive really long. But that's not even the craziest way that you can reach the pole. You can ski. Many people have attempted it. I mean, that's how Amundsen and Scott got there. So maybe get a dog. That will help you out a little bit, and you can eat it later. Or they also offer the 1 degree ski tours, so they will take you to 89 degrees and you will ski only the remaining section. But I mean, if you really want to go to Antarctica and ski all the way from the coast to the pole, I'll prepare for some 1400 kilometers at best, in the worst possible conditions. I don't think I would survive there. You can barely survive Central European winter. So if I ever go to the poles, I will probably fly there. What does it say about me? Anyway, that's not the only thing that you have to do if you go to Antarctica. I'm starting to repeat myself, but this is really kind of a complicated thing, and that's why it's such an achievement. Because consider there are not so many people in the world that have been to both poles. There have been more people in space than on both poles. That's insane. You can be in a very rare club. Anyway, to get to Antarctica, you will have to get a permit. It's kind of a visa. It can be issued by any country that is a member of the Antarctic Treaty, and only then you can board one of these ships or planes to get to Antarctica. So I really hope that you found this video interesting. As you can see, it's a polar day here, so I need to be wearing this because it's you know, the ozone layer and all the things that we know about the poles. So let me look like this for a bit and see my ugly eyes for a moment. So if you like this video, please give me a like, subscribe to my channel. It will really help me out a lot. It means very much for me if you could help me with this. Tell other people who might be interested in my content to go watch me. Check out my other social media, Instagram especially, and see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.